ready to rumble, lads. That's how we're introducing the podcast.
I think that that's the intro instead of all the usual bullshit that we say.
We're ready to rumble, lads.
We're ready to go, boys.
Okay. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to Super Hell, aka the Mystery Spotcast, a show where two recovering Supernatural fans subject themselves to a rewatch so no one else ever has to watch Supernatural again. My name is Klaudia, my pronouns are she, her, and you can find me on social media at Klaudia says, K-A-L-U-D-I-A says.
Let's go, boys. My name is Ollie. Whatever for pronouns, I don't care. And you can find me on social media at Ollie Fresh. It's fresh with a PH. Dude, it's over. Like, for real, it's over. Like, we talk a lot about being like, oh, you know, Supernatural sucks and like season 6 sucks and it sucks after season 5, but it's like, I don't think I was really prepared for being like, because at least with season 5 and like all the episodes before, it's like maybe we would have an episode or two in a row that were like true stinkers. Yeah. But then there would be one that was good, or there would be good moments. Genuinely, the last 3 episodes have all sucked so bad. Like it's not funny anymore. Like,
there's one good Destiel moment to get us through that we'll talk about. So this is the status quo of most of Supernatural, where it's mostly garbage, and then there'll be like one, it's like picking the M&M out of the trail mix, and there'll be one M&M of Destiel.
I wish I could go back like 10 episodes ago to when we started season 5, and I was like, oh yeah, season 5, like there's like all these issues, because season 5 compared to like just these first like 6 episodes of this season are like like angelic, like they're so good. And now I'm like, oh, like guys, I really don't know how to express. As I was watching both of these episodes, I was like, my heart was sinking, because I was like, it's bad. Like, it's actually bad from here on out.
And
like,
I know we keep saying that, but it is.
like for real, something shifted. Like, actually.
Something shifted. Actually, something shifted, and it was the new decade, because these are episodes all in 2010. So
yeah, and another really cute thing about it is, so, listen, I think a lot of the writers, like, we talk about, like, showrunners, we talk mad shit about Andrew Dabb, and rightfully so, but the problem is that not only is that happen, like, you know, are we seeing, like, Eric Kripke phase out and new showrunners and that kind of stuff phase in, whatever, like, overarching plot is kind of, like, not great, but the problem is, and I realize this season and like next season is when a lot of the writers who've written some of the shittier episodes of later seasons start to come on board.
Yeah. Not Bobo Barons. I would never hate on him. That's my bestie right there.
Correct. Let's just get into it. Are we ready?
Yeah.
This episode, this first one, dude, the moment it started, I saw the fucking title and said, it's so over. And some things I'm going to add for this episode. I think Klaudia and I might have some disagreements about, like, certain parts, but I think overall we agree about, like, the content and, like, overall the ranking of the episode. But there's another thing that I wanted to add, which is that there is a moment that I feel like was specifically tailor-made to piss me off. And it's not what you would think. Like, it's not, I guarantee it is not what, it is probably the biggest non-issue in an episode riddled with just horrible bullshit. It is probably the thing that is least offensive, but to me, I was like, no, fuck you, you did this to me. But we'll get there. I don't need to do a crazy, analysis of it before y'all even know what I'm talking about. So prepare yourself. This is season 6, episode 5, Live Free or Twihard.
Yes, this is because this is the Twilight parody episode. I did have resident Twilight expert, my partner Claire, watch it with me, and I wrote down their notes, so they'll be speaking through us.
The problem is that I don't really feel like it has a scene that sort of parodies Twilight, but it's not really a Twilight parody. So
It is in ways that only a very diehard Also, the title is a parody of both Die Hard and Twilight, which are my partner's two favorite things. So they did say the words, if this had aired and if I had seen this when it had aired, it probably would have made me a Supernatural fan. And I was like, oh god.
If watching this episode makes you a Supernatural fan, I pray for you.
No. If in 2010 when they were that young,
no,
like it would have gotten to
but
their nascent brain. You
no,
know what
and
I mean?
I get what you're saying, but I stand by what I said. Like, if you walk away from this episode being like, this show is good, there's something seriously wrong with you.
Also, to note, is that, for the context, the first Twilight movie and the first episode of Supernatural came out the same year. Or, sorry, the first Twilight book and the first episode of Supernatural came out the same year, 2005. This episode came out in 2010. The first Twilight movie came out in 2008, and then New Moon came out in 2009. And then this episode aired in what, October?
This came out
2010?
Let me check. Let me consult the wiki. It came out in October of 2010.
Okay, so Eclipse had just come out in June 30th, 2010. So 3 Twilight movies are out. This is also why there's a reference to Taylor Lautner. So just to give you some background, there's 3 Twilight movies have already come out by the time this episode has aired. I don't know if Breaking on the Book must have already come out by then.
I think all the books were out by this point, but like, here's my problem. You can tell that this episode doesn't come at it from a perspective of we respect Twilight.
Well, no. Well,
which, I mean, to be fair, I say this as someone who read the first Twilight book when I was a kid, or like a tween. I read the first Twilight book. I saw all except for the last movie. So like I was pretty locked in, and then they got to the whole like Renesmee weird pro-life shit, and even at that age I was like, I don't know about this, and I kind of clocked out. And I'm not trying to be like, oh my gosh, well, I was like so smart and special when I was a kid.
No.
I was just like
yeah.
Anyway, and then I just didn't gaff. But my point is that I am someone who, despite having some issues with the Twilight as a franchise, because there are many issues to be had with it, I do respect the role that it played, and like I respect how important it was to many young people, and many especially young girls. Because keep in mind, this is a YA story, targeted towards young girls.
Yeah, I would also say
we must forget this episode of Supernatural says 2 core tenets, which is, man, young girls are so stupid, and gay people are weird and gross. Like, those are the 2 main themes you can take away from this episode.
And I feel like this episode is a really good snapshot of its time, because for those of you who don't remember, may not have been in the shits of the Twilight fandom that I was, because I was one of those, like, much like my fandom for Twilight prepared me for my fandom of Supernatural, which came second.
That's
which
real.
was, I started this, I'm invested in the characters, this is the worst piece of media I've ever consumed, and now I will hate consume it in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Is that nobody was really talking about the real issues in Twilight. Like, the Mormonism stuff came later, like with Tumblr, and people were like, wait, this is a little anti-choice and things like that. People were just talking about how, like, women were stupid and dumb.
Yeah, that was like the criticism of Twilight was not like, hey, it's really weird the way that this white author talks about indigenous people. It's like, no, girls, you're stupid if you think that these hot young men are hot. Kill yourself.
Yeah, and like that was the prevailing, I mean, obviously that criticism existed, but the prevailing thing in popular culture was like, oh, look at this thing that dumb teenage girls like, and then Hollywood was like, oh fuck, this makes a lot of money, wait, shit, hold on, rewind.
Yeah.
But
I mean, to be fair, I unironically I had 2 shirts when I was in middle school. One was a Team Jacob shirt, and one was a Team Edward shirt, and I would wear both of them to school.
Okay.
Like,
okay.
Because I was like, even at the time, I didn't know, but I was like, this love triangle would be solved by a polycule. I didn't even realize that at the time, but looking back, I'm like, is that what shit I was on?
No, because those of us who know, baby's first fujo moment for me was the moment in Eclipse was the moment in Eclipse where they're in that
In the
fucking
tent?
And I'm like, wait, Edward and Jacob should kiss. And I was
No,
like, I'll unpack that later.
You know that image that someone edited and it's like them standing next to each other and it says fuck Bella on it? I think that is so powerful. Also, you know what I'm thinking? I think the thing that really made me be like, I think I was a little weirded out by like the way that they talked about pregnancy and the way that her body was treated. But I think the thing that really weirded me out where I was like, what the hell, was when Jacob was like, and that's my girl. That was when I was like, I don't want to see the next movie.
I like Eclipse made me be like, oh, fuck that. Like New Moon, I was like, Edward, girl, shut the fuck up.
And Breaking Dawn Part 1 was like, okay.
Breaking Dawn Part
2 was like, I haven't seen it. So.
Okay, here's the thing. Terrible book. Breaking Dawn Part 2, incredible movie. Let's just say the girls have not been as gagged as they were in Breaking Dawn Part 2 in the theater when they have everybody's head gets cut off or whatever, but then that's a vision. The only time I've seen the girls gagged at that level was either PETA saying, what about the baby? Or,
so true.
Or Infinity War when they all start disappearing. Like, there has not been a moment in a theater with that absolute gaggery.
So not true. Probably the only other part I can think of in the theater with that much gaggery was in Conclave when Adeyemi calls Tremblay Judah.
Okay, honestly?
I'm joking. The idea that has the same cultural impact. I'm joking. That's a joke. I'm just too Conclave pilled.
That fourth movie had random ass fucking people in it because Lee Pace is a really hot vampire in the fourth movie.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Mr. Robot. What's his name?
Rami Malek.
Rami Malek is in it playing Avatar of the Four Elements vampire for no reason.
Because the problem is I didn't see the movie, but I've seen like parts of it. I've seen clips. I've seen whatever, like on reruns on TV. But like every time I see something from that movie, I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is that like we would not have the modern blockbuster without it. That's the crazy part.
No,
anyways,
that's very true. So, we wouldn't have the franchise and you know what? Maybe this is a problem because we wouldn't have franchise media as it exists now without Twilight. Maybe Twilight was like, and like, you know, I think that there's some franchise media that is good. Do we need to just go back in time and destroy Twilight in order to save us from the current media landscape?
Stopping Stephanie Meyer is something I definitely would try to do.
That I feel is the morally correct.
Yeah, and J.K. Rowling, obviously.
Well, yes.
But the wider point I'm trying to make here is that when we talk about this episode, like, you know how we've talked about how Supernatural is very much, it never knows what it's trying to say or what its audience is, and a lot of times when Supernatural will overcorrect and be like, no, we're a bros show about bros, and get really machismo with it, and then it'll swing around to being gay. This episode is kind of a prime example, because this is an episode where they're like, we're going to use Supernatural as a way to be a part of this cultural conversation about femininity and about women, and so to reestablish that their point of view as like the male point of view on the supernatural and on vampires, while Twilight is the female point of view, they go full tilt into the whole, well, we're men and we think this is gross kind of thing.
Yeah,
and it's just so stupid.
Also, there's one decision too that's so baffling to me about like who the major antagonist is in this episode. Like some of the lines, some of the shit that happens, I'm just like, what? Okay, so let's get into it. Fuck, okay. So there's this girl who's obviously was directed to act like Kristen Stewart in Twilight.
And her name is Kristen.
Well, I'll get there. Spoilers. Bitch? No. So this girl shows up, she's at a bar. She's literally dressed like Bella from Twilight, so jot that down. She shows up at a bar, and she shows the bartender a fake ID that is so clearly not her because she is white and the girl in the picture is Asian. And the bartender, he didn't gaff. He was like, whatever, who cares?
The thing you have to understand about this bar, and really this whole episode, but this bar specifically, is that it's a parody of what people who make network television think a punk bar is.
Yeah.
And she's also dressed as a parody of Bella. And here's the funny part, if you know anything about Twilight, nothing about Twilight is punk at all. It is actually
it's not.
the opposite of punk.
Yeah. It's weird. But the other thing, too, she sits down at this table, right? And it is framed, and it's been a while since I've seen the movie, but did it not remind you of the scene where Edward and Bella go to dinner together?
Yeah.
And she gets that damn mushroom ravioli?
Yes. So, like, this is the one thing I did have to give them props for in this episode, was that the parody of Twilight that they do in this opening scene is quite good. It's very spot on.
And you know what? You're allowed to think that, because I thought it was dumb as fuck.
Well,
I did not
because Twilight is dumb as fuck.
But also the other thing too, though, is that they have, okay, so she goes down and she sits, and this guy rolls up and is like, they have this whole like, oh, I didn't think you would come, like all this stuff, so clearly they were gonna meet here. He's wearing like a leather jacket and like has like this like punk tortured vibe, and I'm like, that's not what Edward's vibe was at all.
No, but exactly. But that's my thing, is that like it's both a good and a bad parody, because here's the thing, the costuming, the setting, whatever, all is not Edward's vibe. It is what the culture thinks is Edward's vibe.
That is actually true.
And whatever. However, the actors are killing the game, though, because
the actors are
they are getting the weird bullshit of the Twilight, the writing and the acting is getting the weird, like, nobody talks like this elements of, and some of them are like exact lines from Twilight. They're getting the weird vibe between Edward and Bella perfect, even if the outer trappings are more of the idea of Twilight. Like, they get to the purity of Twilight, which is, this is how weird Mormons talk to each other when they can't just fuck.
It is just crazy to me, because like part of me thinks that it's like, it is a good parody of what people thought Twilight was, but I think that for me, I'm like, okay, if you're gonna do a parody of something, you have to have a deep understanding of that thing, and I think that was one of my problems with like the way people talked about Twilight in general, aside from the like sexism of being like, girls like this, so it's stupid, but like the actual like, people make fun of Twilight, but they make fun of it for reasons that I'm like, Twilight doesn't even do that. Like, you're not making fun of Twilight, you're just like saying shit.
I think that's also what makes it funny, is that they clearly don't have an understanding of Twilight, except for in this one scene where they get it perfectly down pat,
but
and then the rest they don't get it.
I don't think they did, because the whole thing is, he's like, so she's like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't think you would come, and he's like, of course I did, because like, I read, you know, like, you've enchanted me, like, I read your poetry online and it was beautiful. And I'm like, okay, Bella would not do that. Like, Bella is not, like, it is, like, fundamentally, Bella is, like, an awkward girl. Like, she's not, like, some tortured artist. Like, that's just not
I guess, I guess as somebody, and that's the thing, as somebody who was in the Twilight fandom so much, is that the dichotomy between the self-insert version of yourself and Bella in reality, but, like, the dichotomy between what the supernatural fandom, both us girls ourselves, and also the wider culture, considered to be Edward's love interest versus what Bella actually was, is a wide gulf.
That's very true.
And I think that this episode is kind of playing into that, because it's like, well, they know that.
So this is more like, I guess to me then, this is like, if I recontextualize this as less of like making fun of Twilight and more making fun of fans of Twilight, then I'm like, okay, then in that case, it is kind of a good parody, but it's not good.
But like, also, this show consistently, and this is why, girl, I hate this show hates on not just its own fans, but fandom and fans so constantly and consistently that it becomes a recurring, like, there's a lot of long-running shows that make fun of fans, good or bad. Supernatural has an episode about it at least once a season, and is nasty about it.
No, it's kind of like, it's kind of diabolical, and every single time they're like, this is where all of these, because at least with like the fan convention episode, I was like, you can tell that they're making fun of their fans, but like, it's kind of in a tongue-in-cheek way.
And they're always a little homophobic about it too.
Well, yes, but there's episodes later on that are like, whoa, okay, like, it's just mean spirited.
I will defend them on this one thing, though, is that if you had to spend long amounts of time with Supernatural fans, I think you would get hateful too.
I mean, that's why we are the way we are, is because we spend time with each other, and it's like, well, anyway.
Yeah.
But the point is, he sits down.
It's an Edward and Bella parody in this moment.
Yeah, but it's like a girl who's trying to be Bella and guy who is trying to be what fandom thought Edward was. Okay, anyway.
Okay, wait. I will also say the interesting part in here is that it's specifically preying on teenage girls in this, and, like, that's a part of the plot, but also, like, how teenage girls engage in fandom here. And yeah. Anyways.
Mm-hmm. So this guy sits down. He's wearing, like, a leather jacket. He's super pale. His hair is like a pompadour almost. And she's like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe you came. And you find out, like, through their conversation, he's read her poetry online. They met in an online chat room and agreed to come to this bar. And she reaches into he's like, oh, I loved your poetry. And she reaches into her bag. That's, like, the same bag Bella has in Twilight. She reaches into her bag to grab, like, more of her poetry. And she gets a paper cut. And he does the whole, like, Edward thing where he's like, oh my gosh, like, he kind of has to cover his face, and he gets up and he's like, I have to go, and he runs away. And then I couldn't tell, because I'm pretty sure she was wearing a different outfit. It's supposed to be, like, another day. And
it was
she's
not
at
clear.
Same bar and the same seat, but he comes back, and she's like, oh my gosh, like, you came back. And he's like, I couldn't stay away from you, like, the very Bella and Edward bullshit.
There's also a thing that I didn't notice, but that Claire pointed out, was that he does the thing where he catches her phone like Edward did in the first movie. Yeah. So there is an attention to detail there for some things.
Yeah. He catches her phone the way Edward catches the apple in the movie.
Yeah. I also have to say, like, Supernatural is very much characterized by incredible attention to detail on certain things and then just bullshit on everything else.
Yeah. I did notice that. I just totally forgot to write it down. But, he's like, his name, she's like, oh my gosh, Robert, girl. Their names are Robert and Kristen. So he comes back and he's like, we can't do this. Like, you shouldn't be here. We can't be together. And she's like, I can make my own decisions. I'm 17. But she's like, no, like, I can handle it. We can do this. And he's like, look. And he lifts up his lip, and you see in supernatural fashion, the way that vampires work is that their teeth sort of come out when they're like retractable, but he has this little tiny fang like up in his gums. And Kristen's like, oh my gosh, I knew it. And she starts to pull back and like show him her throat. And he's like, no, let me show you my world. And then it shows them like kind of laughing, and they run out behind like a building, and they're like talking all this stuff. And then this guy approaches, and he's like heavy set, big curly hair, just like guy who's probably in his like 40s-ish. Just such a weird choice, but this guy will become a major character later. But he walks out, and he's like, oh, like, you got a good one. Like, oh, she's pretty, whatever. Like, great job, Robert. And she's like, wait, what's going on? And then they start attacking her. And then it's, like, supernatural. So, yeah, this weird start, at least it's, like, you can think maybe, like, oh, it's, like, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but then it just keeps getting worse. Like, it keeps getting worse. It does not get better. So jot that down. We cut. We see Dean standing by the Impala. He's on the phone, and he's talking to Lisa. And he's like, hey, like, you know, we're the town over. I'd love to see you. You know, maybe I can swing by in a couple days, and, you know, we can meet up. And she's like, just get yourself over here. Like, oh my gosh, like, so excited to see each other. The phone call ends. Sam walks over, and he's like, oh, who are you talking to? And what does Dean say? He's like, he doesn't say that he's talking to Lisa, which is really weird to me because I'm like, why would he like hide the fact that he's talking to Lisa from Sam?
I also have to say in this moment, get it, Lisa. I know she wants that cookie bad. Like,
I know, but I'm also like, girl, stand up.
No, like stand up, but also like she's like, oh, this phone thing is getting. He's like, this phone thing is getting old, whatever. And I'm like good for her. And I know she's hankering for it, and good for her.
That is very true.
Good. This episode is about female sexuality, and this is probably the only time that it's ever addressed properly.
Yeah, well, if properly is a really strong term too. So because even worse is the next thing that Dean says.
This is a hashtag not my Dean moment.
Who
wrote
literally
this fuck-ass episode.
So this was written by Brett Matthews. It is his first episode.
Yeah, clearly, by the way, that Dean would never fucking say that.
Except for the fact that now I'm like, oh god, Dean would say that because they keep doing it anyway.
No, hashtag not my Dean.
They're in front of like a police station, and they're clearly dressed as FBI agents. Sam walks out and he's like, here, take a look, like 7 girls have gone missing. And he pulls out these pictures, and Dean goes, oh, they're like cute, aren't they? What? Sam literally just said these are like teenage girls. Why is Dean making a comment about it?
It's so weird.
Why is pedophilia low-key a main point in both of these episodes?
It's weird.
It's really weird. But Dean being like, oh, these girls are hot. That is a 17-year-old, okay?
And he vacillates back and forth from being like, oh, that's a child, to then saying this. So that's why it's like every episode is a different Dean.
Oh, it's so dark. But these 7 girls have gone missing. So they're like, okay, we need to figure out what's going on. So this most recent girl, Kristen, she's the one we saw in the opener of the episode. So they're like, okay, we're going to go to her house. They go in and have this conversation with her father that I'm like, I don't know why it was directed this way, because it makes the father seem like super shady, even though we never see him again, and clearly that was not like the intention. But he's talking about how he's like, well, yeah, girls are hard to raise, and like, I did my best, and I don't know. Like, does not seem that sad that his daughter is missing. But they tell him, like, you know, can we see your room? Like, we just want to find your daughter. And he's like, yeah, but, like, I'll warn you, it's kind of a lot. So Sam and Dean go up into this girl's room, and we have this, like, sequence where it shows she has an absolutely, like, kind of a dream room for, like, a Twilight fan.
No, because
but it has,
I respected it. Literally.
But it has, like, this, okay, first of all, I'm gonna say Twilight. It's not Twilight. Like, it is different actors. Like, clearly they were not licensing, like, actual images from Twilight. So it is, like, a bunch of parodies of Twilight, posters and books and, like, different, like, vampire-inspired decorations. Like, her room is totally covered. And she has the same bedspread that Bella has in the book. Which I was like, wait, that's so slay. I'm jealous of her room, even though I personally am not, like, even though I dipped out of Twilight, I was like, I low-key want that room.
And it's just giving, like, gothic, like, vampire, like,
yeah.
Like, she ate that shit up.
I probably want that room because I'm a stupid woman. That's probably it, right? Why I think that looks good. Because I'm a dumbass woman. Anyway. So they're like, whoa. Shit, we were not prepared for this to be this, like, tripped out. So they're like, okay, like, vampires, like, it would be super easy, like, with this whole vampire craze, it's probably super easy for vampires to, like, lure young girls into doing stuff. So they start, like, going through things. There's a point where Dean finds a book that's supposed to be, like, a Twilight parody, and on the cover is, like, a girl asleep and a guy standing there watching her, a la Edward in Twilight. And he goes to Sam and he's like, dude, listen, how the hell are people into this? Like, is this not rapey to you? And I'm like, and you know what, though? And here's the problem. Despite many of the jokes about Twilight, that is true. Like, that shit was weird.
But it also doesn't make sense because earlier in the episode, he's creeping on teen girls. So it's like, which Dean is it this scene? God knows.
to be fair, I will say in Dean's defense, when he made that comment about, like, the girls being cute, it's like, okay, you know he didn't mean anything by it. Still, like, weird as fuck, but, like, okay, it wasn't like he was actually like, I would hook up with these girls. Unlike other times where he has said things that you're like, ew, what? But I digress. So they find this, and they find her laptop, under her bed. And this is the part that really drove me crazy. Because again, clearly they have all this stuff. Twilight is not one for one in this universe, right? There's all these posters that have different actors, different people, not the actors from Twilight. Sam opens the laptop, and Sam is, like, Dean keeps talking to him, like, making comments about the room, while Sam is trying to, like, crack her password. And he's like, Dean, can I focus, please? And there's a part where Dean's like, try Lautner. And Sam's like, oh, it didn't work. And he goes, oh, try Pattinson. And that works to get into the laptop. To which I say, her room has these Twilight parody posters. They couldn't have come up with an alternative, like, an alternative actor name, because I know it's for the joke, and I know I'm thinking too much about it, but this is low-key, like, the debate of being, like, do movies with Samuel L. Jackson exist in the MCU universe?
Yeah.
Like, because I'm, like, and this is what I was saying in the beginning, where I was like, something specifically made to piss me off, where I'm like, it's so not a big deal and so clearly supposed to be, like, a tongue-in-cheek joke, but I'm sitting here being like, well, that's not actually, like, she doesn't have Twilight posters, like, Robert Pattinson is clearly not here. You are clearly establishing that in the supernatural universe, it's not Twilight, it is something akin to Twilight.
Yeah.
But yes, it is Twilight, and I was like, I got so heated, and now as I'm talking about it, I'm like, this shit is stupid. Like, I sound like an idiot.
No, also, the book that he picks up is giving more, like, traditional capital R romance novel bodice ripper, which the whole point of Twilight is that it's not a romance novel. I mean, technically, I guess it eventually is, because there is erotica, and they do have sex in it, and they do have a happy ending.
There's no erotica in Twilight.
Well, in Breaking Dawn, they do explicitly have sex.
Yeah, but it's more like fade to black. Like, they're not actually, like, fucking.
So it's like, one could argue, but it's like...
It's still like a YA romance.
It's kind of like a mix of, like... In the show, it's kind of like a mix of, like, that she's a fan of, like, dark romance and also this fictional version of Twilight.
Yeah.
Also,
you have to keep in mind, though, that, like, at the time, the state of publishing was very different than it is now. Like, the classification system was just different.
No, but the other thing I have to say is that maybe they're not very good sleuths, because if they know Taylor Lautner and they know Robert Pattinson, they should look around her room, see fictional Robert Pattinson is the cutout on the back of her door, and pick Robert Pattinson as the potential password before Taylor Lautner, because us real Lautner heads, us real Jacob Black fans would have had Jacob Black merch. She didn't have werewolf shit around. She had vampire shit. So maybe they're stupid. Anyway.
No, I get, this is, like, as I've been talking about this, like, just now, I'm realizing how stupid it is and how little I actually care about it. But in the moment, I think I was just pissed off because the episode sucks. I digress. So they get into her computer and they start, like, seeing all this stuff. Like, again, she was, like, posting all of her, like, dark poetry online, and they find that she was in this chat room, or it was, like, emails, whatever, but she was talking back and forth with this guy who is saying he's a vampire, and, like, Sam's reading aloud his messages that are like, it's too dangerous for you, like, I'm bad for you, but, like, I can't stop thinking about you, all this stuff. And he invites her to meet at this bar called the Black Rose, and Dean's like, the Black Rose, like, that's the most stereotypical bullshit, but he's probably just, like, a run-of-the-mill, like, pervert, right? Like, the chance that this is actually a vampire is kind of low. And Sam's like, yeah, but think about, kind of reflecting the conversation they've been having, he's like, think about how easy it would be to lure these young girls into, like, right into your arms if you're a vampire. Like, this is prime hunting for them. So, you know, it's kind of all that. They're like, okay, we gotta investigate. Then we cut to a scene and we see Robert, this vampire, who we saw in the first scene, who lured Kristen in. He and a bunch of little vampire goons start attacking this truck and like stealing boxes from out of this truck. And like they knock out the guy who, like the driver, and the camera zooms out and you see that it is like a medical transport truck, and it has a bunch of blood, like donated blood in bags in it, and that's what they're stealing. So jot that down. Later, Sam gets a call from Samuel Campbell, and Samuel's like, dude, it's so crazy. I heard about this hijacking of this like blood, like this thing that happened. And the boys are like, that's really weird, because if the vampires are like getting all these girls and like all these girls are disappearing, why do they have a need, like they have the blood bags, why do they have a need to steal blood? Like it just doesn't make sense. Like something here is not quite adding up. So they go to the Black Rose, this club, bar, whatever. Another really weird scene. Because again, like Klaudia said, it's kind of like supposed to be like a punk / emo spot, which, and first of all, like as someone who was a teenager in the 2010s, I was like, these people are dressed in the most like not actually emo or punk way, but like especially emo. Like I don't feel like I have a lot of stakes to talk about punk culture, but in terms of emo culture, I was there. This is not how we were.
I also have to note that like they're mixing up punk, emo, and then it's giving like gay leather bar. They cannot decide. They cannot decide what this bar is.
It's really weird. And I'm also like an insane place to try to lure teenage girls.
Just okay.
So Sam and Dean sit down at the bar. They get a drink. Dean's like, dang, Sam, like how long has it been since we just like got a drink together and like hung out? And that moment, Sam looks over and he goes like, oh, there's like, I think that person looks like a vampire. Like they're trying to stake out like if there are actual vampires here or if it's just like a fluke. But there's a part where they see, and this is the part I didn't quite understand. Just like the dialogue, I understood what was trying to be said. But they see this woman, they see this guy, they see this other guy, who they all are kind of clocking as vampires. And Sam's like, oh, there's 3 of them and 2 of us. And then 2 of the 2 guys, just 2 guys start making out across the bar. And Dean goes, well, 2 of them, actually. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, am I stupid? I didn't understand, like, what that comment...
So,
like, I guess understand what that meant.
It was basically that they were like, okay, any of these guys could be the guy who's luring. And then... another guy walked up and kissed one of the guys, and he was like, well, definitely not that one. He's
okay,
gay.
I understand.
Yeah.
That I felt really stupid. I rewatched that scene like 4 times because I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Sam was giving low-key homophobic.
No, both of them were, because these 2 guys start kissing and both of them are like, ugh,
brother,
ugh.
And I'm like,
you know what?
I'd rather 2 men kiss than a man prey on a young girl. Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just such a fucking weird thing.
Also, Dean also thinks she wears all that rubber to the beach about one of the waitresses or one of the bartenders. I'm like, what are we saying?
No, it was just whatever.
Stupid.
So they're like, okay. Like they see some of the vampires, some of these couples, like whatever, go off into different sections, and Sam and Dean are like, okay, we're gonna split up. Sam follows some of them like into the back of the establishment, and they start fighting. Like a vampire starts beating the shit out of him, and Sam is fighting back. He decapitates it with a knife, which is, for those of you who inquiring minds, that's how you kill a vampire in supernatural lore. We cut, and we're back in the alleyway, and a guy who's like has this like very like, the supernatural wiki describes him as goth, but I would say definitely not goth at all.
No,
like,
not at all.
No, like leather jacket, not the same guy as before, but he's like wearing like a leather jacket and his hair spiked up. Clearly he's trying to look like Edward. And this girl and him are like, he's like, are you ready to join my world? Like clearly a vampire. Dean runs out and like pulls him off of her, and he's like, what the hell, man? this guy isn't, but he tells the girl to run. The girl runs, realizes that the guy is not a vampire. He has fake teeth in, and Dean's like, what the hell? Like, are you just pretending to be a vampire? And he's like, yeah, it's to get laid. And he's like, wait, are you wearing glitter on your face? And he's like, yeah. And Dean's like, does it work? And he's like, yeah, it does. And Dean's like, huh. Okay, get out of here. Run. Go. Get away. And wear a condom.
Yeah, he literally makes the face of like, he literally makes this face of like, that's something I don't want to consider about myself. Anyway, pack that away for later. No, and also when he yells the wear a condom thing, I'm like, so what are we? Are we giving like, you know, uptight dad? Are we giving like creep? Like, he's just a different Dean in every scene.
It's so beautiful. Okay. Again, Supernatural is allergic to not being homophobic. So as Dean goes to leave, this same guy with the curly hair who was in the first scene walks up to Dean. He like appears out of nowhere. And he's like, well, like, aren't you pretty? And Dean goes, sorry, pal, I don't play for your team. And the guy like grabs him and throws him like a million yards away. Like he's super strong. And Dean's like, oh, fuck, this guy's a vampire. So they start fighting. And this guy, whose name is Boris, I think we learn that later, but just so I don't have to keep calling him different pseudonyms, his name is Boris. So they're fighting, and Boris is like winning, and he has Dean pinned, and Sam runs up into the alleyway and looks over and sees them fighting, and he just stands there and watches as Boris cuts his hand and feeds Dean his blood, which, as you'll call in Supernatural, it isn't about a bite. It is just about like feeding on the vampire's blood that turns you into a vampire. And Sam just stands there and watches this happen. After this is done, Sam suddenly is like, hey, Dean, get off him. Almost acting like he just rolled up, even though he had been standing there. And the vampire turns and like runs away. And Sam runs over to Dean and he's like, oh my God, like, are you good? And Dean looks up at him and he's like, Sammy, like, it's over. They go back to their motel. Dean is like having an autistic meltdown, basically. He's freaking out. Like, he can hear the clock ticking, which I'm like, that's so real. I cannot sleep in a room that has a clock that ticks.
What's interesting about, and this is in Twilight as well, certain portrayals of vampires are just, they're just autistic. Like, they're just a little more sensitive to shit around that.
But, so, like, the lights are too bright, and Sam's like, how are you? And Dean's like, can you, like, turn all the lights off, whatever. He can hear, like, the neighbor's TV, and he's like, Sam, like, why is that so loud? And Sam's like, I literally don't hear anything. And he's, like, banging on the walls, being like, hey, shut up. It clearly is having an issue. And, Sam is like, okay, like, I'm gonna call Samuel, and he'll be able to help us, like, figure this out. And Dean's like, you know what? Yeah, you call him, because he's gonna kill me when he gets here. And I'm gonna ask him to, like, I'm gonna let him. And Sam's like, no, he won't. And Dean's like, no, I want him to, because I don't want to become a monster. Hey, Sam, why aren't you more freaked out? And Sam's like, what? Like, I am. And Dean's like, well, no, because I can hear your heart rate, and it's pretty damn steady right now. And Sam's like, well, because I'm trying to stay calm. And Dean's like, yeah, okay, like, whatever. He goes into the bathroom, and he's like, looking at himself in the mirror, and he lifts up his lip and he can see like a teeny tiny little fang pointing out of his gums. And it's been a couple minutes. Sam is like, okay, Dean's been in the bathroom a long time, so he knocks on the door and is like, hello? Dean doesn't answer, so he opens the door and the window's open and Dean's gone.
Dean also does say a line here where he's like, yeah, well, vampires pee.
Yeah, he's like, I have to go to the bathroom because vampires do still pee, fucker. So this next scene...
Wait, I'm so sorry. I forgot in my notes. Dean, I believe in this scene, or during this moment, he does also say, never thought I'd be going out like this. And knowing that is how he goes out, killed by vampires. Killed by juggalo vampires on a rusty nail.
Fuck.
Is fucking crazy. Anyway.
So... this next scene is one that I remember extremely differently, and I think is, like, extremely stupid. I remember watching this, like, when I watched Supernatural the first time, I remember the scene so clearly, and then I rewatched it and was like, this is not what happened. This is not how I remembered this scene happening. So, because I thought this happened way later in the season. I did not realize it was in this episode. So, we see Lisa. She's asleep in her bed, and we pan out, and Dean is standing there watching her sleep, a la Edward in Twilight. Just like the guy who he was like, is that not rapey? Like, way earlier. Lisa wakes up, and she's like, Dean, like, what are you doing here? Like, I thought you were gonna be a couple days. And she goes up to, like, kind of hug him, and he kind of, like, puts his hands up, like, pushes her back, and he's like, Lisa, don't come near me. Like, I just wanted to come here and thank you for, like, everything you and Ben have done for me. And she's like, Dean, like, what are you talking about? And he's like, Lisa, like, my life is really violent, and I can't, like, bring that home to you. Like, it's basically, it's like, it's gonna be over soon, so, like, don't worry about it. And she's, like, trying to get him to explain, and she's like, you can't just, like, show up here and say that. Like, I want you to tell me what's going on. And he grabs her, and he, like, shoves her and pushes her up against a wall, and we see, like, he could hear her heartbeat, and he lets go of her, he turns away, and we see this horrible CGI fang, like, these horrible CGI fangs come out of his mouth, and he, like, fights it back, and he's like, I gotta go, and he runs into the hallway, and Lisa's like, Dean, like, wait, and Jesus Christ, Ben walks out, and he's like, Dean, like, what are you doing here? And Dean grabs Ben and, like, shoves him into the wall and runs out. You know, we'll dissect this because I feel like there is fallout of this. And I think that not only was this scene stupid, the fallout is somehow even stupider. Like, it just is not good. But I remember on Tumblr, the girls being like, the worst thing Dean Winchester has ever done is shove Ben. And I remember at the time being like, yes, that's so true. And now I'm looking back on it, and I'm like, okay, it was fucked up. Like, like, totally stupid of him to have gone back. And he later realizes that this was a bad idea. But the fact that he doesn't just explain, like, Lisa, I'm turning into a vampire right now, I gotta get out of here. Like,
yeah, like, she knows. It's so stupid. It's so...
Okay, anyway.
Also, why doesn't he just go back out the window? Why is he going to the hallway?
Probably because he's stupid.
Yeah.
And because the writers of this show piss me off. Anyway. So, sorry also, guys, it just started thundering, like, really crazy style. So yeah, that's, like, super cute. So if you hear the thunder in the background, sorry about that. We cut back to the motel. Sam is there, and Samuel walks in, and he's like, hey girl, where's Dean? And Sam's like, he left, like, he's gone. And Samuel's like, oh my fucking god, like, how did you let him go? Like, how'd you let that happen? He's turning into a monster, and he's hungry. If we don't stop him, like, he's gonna hurt people. And he starts, like, loading his gun, because he's like, well, it's over, isn't it? And then Dean rolls up, and he's like, yeah, you're right about that. And Sam and Samuel are like, oh my god, like, where were you? And he's like, well, I went to say goodbye to Lisa, which I realize now was a really lousy idea. And Samuel's like, did you feed? And Dean, like, kind of turns around, and you see there's no blood on him. He's like, no, I have not. You should just kill me now. And Samuel's like, yeah, I probably should. Or we can cure you. And Dean's like, huh? What do you mean? Then the boys are sitting at the table in the motel room. Samuel pulls out this journal that's shockingly like John Winchester's journal, but it's way bigger. It's got a lot of other stuff. And he's like, I have this journal from my grandfather, and it has this cure for vampirism in it. It's untested, so, like, I'm pretty sure it will work, but it seems like there's a lot of risk. You can't feed on any humans, because if you do, it's not going to work. So you need to not do that. The thing that we are gonna need is the blood of the vampire who turned you, which is usually really hard to get, which is why I imagine this cure has not manifested more. And Dean's like, okay, T, we can do that. And Sam's like, yeah, but like, we don't know where they are. And Dean's like, no, I do. With my new like super sniffer, I can tell they're 2 miles out east of town. So I will go there. And Sam's like, well, you're not going to go alone. And he's like, yes, girl, I am going to go by myself because you smell like a human and everyone's going to jump you and you're going to like give us away. But I can probably go because like I'm a vampire and it'll be fine. Samuel pulls out this syringe and he's like, this is dead man's blood. It should be enough to knock your attacker or knock the guy who turned you out, and you should be able to get his blood. So do that. And Dean's like, all right, T, I will go do that. He leaves. Samuel's like, you know, Sam, what's up with this? And Sam is like, what are you talking about? And Samuel's like, so if I didn't know better, I think that you let your brother get turned so you could find the alpha vampire. And Sam's like, I don't know what you mean. And he's like, we talked about the cure. And he's like, oh, I just completely forgot about it. You must have been talking to Christian, who's one of the other Campbell boys. And Samuel's like, I'm pretty sure it was you, but I don't know. And he's like, oh, are you accusing me of like doing this to my own brother? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? And Samuel is clearly like, something's not right here. Like, something's fishy. And Sam is like, you know what, whatever. I'm just happy we can fix this. Deeply strange.
Also, this is where we start to get into, and this happens a lot in the Men of Letters seasons as well, where they're like, oh, we had a cure for vampirism, or we had this, or whatever. It kind of like the demon knife. This is where we just start getting into shit where it's like, well, if we had this in an earlier season, this would have been really helpful.
Also, it's crazy to me the idea that there's a cure for vampirism, and like, Bobby didn't know about it, John didn't know about it.
It's just in Samuel Campbell's fucking
grandpa's journal.
Yeah, like, honestly, the Campbell's, also, he does make a joke here where he's like, Campbell's like the soup.
Oh yeah, because he's like the cure is like, it's like a special like family recipe, you know, like the soup.
And you're like, okay.
That's no, because you know what? In our last episode, we were like, how do the Campbells afford to like do what they do?
Yeah.
And it's like, how did Sam get his car? Because like, how do the Campbells have money? And it's like probably because they're the heirs to the Campbell soup fortune.
Yeah.
I digress. We cut to Dean. He's like sneaking into the vampire nest, and he comes in, and it's like on the front, it's like this old dilapidated building. These two vampires walk out, and Dean uses like a cord to keep the door from locking behind them. And he like sneaks in, and he's going through it, and Robert shows up, the vampire who enticed Kristen. He shows up, and he's like, oh, you made it. You know, Boris wanted me to keep an eye out for you. And Dean's like, oh, yeah, no, I am happy I made it. Haha. And he's like, oh, well, come on, I bet you're hungry. And they go to this, like, fridge that has all the blood they stole in it. And he's like, here, are you hungry? And Dean's like, oh, no, I killed so many people on my way here. And Robert's like, oh, hey, we don't really do that here. Like, that's not our vibes. And Dean's like, I
will say vegetarian vampires is a thing in Twilight, although they drink animal blood instead of drinking from blood banks. But yeah.
But Robert's like, yeah, we don't like really kill people, but like, what's that like? And Dean's like, you know what? I will totally show you later. Which is funny because he does, spoiler alert, he does kill Robert later. But Robert's like, okay, suit yourself. And he starts drinking from the bag. And Dean is clearly like thinking about it, but is like, no, I mustn't. So Robert's like taking Dean through this place, and, like, there's all these other vampires. And he's like, yeah, this is exciting, you know? Like, we're both, like, gonna be recruiters now. It's gonna be so sick. And Dean's like, huh? So they walk in, and we see sitting at a desk in the middle of this room, which is lined with cages, which are full of young girls who are drinking out of, like, blood bags.
Also, I can't tell what this building used to be. It's kind of giving bank, but then...
I thought it was, like, it's like a bank if a bank was Grand Central Station.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Also,
but
okay, I have to say this about Boris. Because he says some crazy shit in this scene.
Yeah.
I think him and Laszlo have fucked.
Don't even joke about. Don't bring up my beautiful Princess Laszlo Cravensworth in this context. Don't even do that.
I just want to say that I also forgot to say that I have a note in my notes about when Dean is having his vampire struggle bus moments, and I did say, good thing Castiel isn't here, or he would have made Dean pregnant.
Why the hell would you say that? Because... I mean, so true, but, like, why would you say that?
Am I wrong? Like, he would have seen Dean acting that way, and he would have been like, I gotta knock him up. Like,
Jesus Christ. I mean, yeah, but...
I'm not wrong. What? Why? Why are you booing me? I'm right.
I'm not booing you. I'm just questioning.
Okay.
I'm staying curious. So they roll up. Boris is, like, at this desk with this other vampire. It's Kristen. She's sitting at this desk on a computer, and he's, like, coaching her through writing, like, dark poetry that they can post online to lure in young girls. So they have, like, this big scheme, this basically human trafficking scheme.
And at the end of the day, it's not vampires who are dangerous, it's men.
Mm-hmm. So he's like, oh my gosh, like, you made it, to Dean. And he sends Kristen, like, away back into her cage or whatever. And he gives her a look that I'm like, ew, she is 17. And he's like, oh, did you get followed? And Dean's like, oh, no, I didn't. And Boris is like, don't worry. If any hunter followed us, we would kill them, like, quite readily. It's not a big deal. And they kind of start talking, and Boris is clearly flirting with Dean and is like, ooh, I'll give you the tour. I'll give you, like, the secret private tour. And Dean's like, uh-huh, yeah. It's just this weird bisexual pedophile vampire is really, like, what the hell's going on? Deeply strange.
This show does not know what it wants to say.
No, it was so weird. So they're like, la la la, whatever. Boris is like, how old do you think I am? And Dean's like, I don't know, like 40. And he's like, so you're actually off by, like, a lot. I'm 600 years old, and I'm having this awesome time building up my squad as I'm, like, recruiting all these vampires. And, you know, once I make a vampire, I get them to, like, I convert them and let them see, like, how awesome this is, and I have them recruit more, which is what you're gonna be doing, like Robert told you. And he's like, oh, Robert didn't really tell me that. And he's like, oh, well, Robert sucks anyway. So basically it's like a multi-level marketing scheme where he gets, like, hot young people to go lure in other young people to join this, like, vampire squad. And Dean's like, oh, that's crazy. Like, who else is this just, like, you guys? And Boris is like, oh no, this wasn't even my idea. This was our father's idea. And Dean's like, who, what do you mean? Like, who is that? Who's your father? And he's like, you'll find out in time. Here, I think you want the private tour. What the hell? Boris thinks he's about to get lucky with Dean, like, honestly.
No, literally.
And
like,
Dean is making these most, like behind Robert's back, Boris, he's making these, like, overly, like, disgusted faces, and I'm like, oh, gross, yeah, gay people, hate them. But that being said, he's probably grossed out because he's, you know, a pedophile. But it's also like, what the hell is going? It's just the optics of it are just so bad. So Boris turns around and Dean goes to follow him, and Dean pulls out the syringe of dead man's blood and he takes the cap off and he goes to stab him with it. And I guess like he accidentally presses it and a drop comes out. Boris hears it. He turns around. He starts fighting Dean. And the girls are fighting, and he's clearly winning because he's 600 years old. Then there's this sound, and Boris suddenly collapses, and then all of these girls who are in the cages start collapsing, and all the other vampires are collapsing, and you can hear them saying like, "Father," and Dean is like, "What's going on?" And then he also collapses, and he starts having this like really weird like vision of all this like stuff happening, and he sees like these two twins who have vampire teeth, and like this man who's like a I don't know, he's like a businessman, but like he's bald and he's like kind of, he has this almost like fatherly vibe. It's later revealed that this is the alpha. But he, like, comes up to the girls, and he's talking to Dean. Like, this is a very dreamlike sequence. It's very hard to parse. But Dean, like, suddenly wakes up. And he looks around, and he sees that the vampires have kind of come to and are coming for him. And he's like, oh, hell no. So he starts fighting back, and he's like decapitating these bitches and like punching the shit out of that. It's a massacre.
I will say, while I think the lore and the storyline is stupid, I do think that sequence, it was a kind of experimental and like weirdly back to the supernatural horror vibe.
Yeah, it felt very like season 1.
Yeah, and
vibes.
Well, this is a stupid episode. I do appreciate the playing around with that. You know, we got a Shining reference. We got that kind of thing. Also, I have to step in here and say there was an Anne Rice reference in Boris's little dialogue, and also he does reference the fact that Edward Cullen drives a Volvo, which is a very specific Twilight fan thing to say.
Yeah. Also, I'm not gonna lie, there was a part where he said Volvo, and I thought he said vulva, and I was like, what the hell? Whoa. And then I had to go back and was like, oh, okay, never mind.
Bro, okay.
Anyway, but so he's like fighting. He decapitates Robert, and he's like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. He starts fighting Boris, and then we cut, and we see Sam and Samuel like pull up, and they're like, geez, I hope Dean is like made easy work of them by now. They roll in because they're like, okay, something's going on. As this is happening, Boris and Dean, we cut back to them, and Boris is like, you haven't stopped anything by doing this. It's bigger than both of us. And he's like, here, come on, like, fight me. We cut back, Sam and Samuel, like, run in, and they are, like, on this balcony, like, this top floor, and they look down, and they're like, Dean, are you good? And Dean turns around, and he's like, yeah, I'm all right. And we see that Boris has been decapitated and is dead. Just very weird. At the motel, Samuel's like getting the cure ready, and Sam is like, Dean, like, what'd you see? And Dean's like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm like trying to forget what I saw because it was all fucked up. Clearly he's having an issue because he is like hungrier and hungrier, and he's having trouble like focusing. And he's like, Sam, I'm trying not to think about it right now. Okay, can we talk about this after we do the cure? But Sam's like obsessed with being like, what is it? What happened in there? And Samuel's like, okay, I have the cure. All right, fingers crossed this works. He gives Dean this like cup of this like red liquid, and Dean drinks it, and he's like, oh, that's nasty. And then he starts like throwing up, and Sam's like, what's happening? And Samuel's like, well, either it's working or he's dying, so I guess we'll find out. And Dean starts having these flashbacks of, like, everything that happened since he became a vampire. And he's, like, seeing all this stuff. And it pauses on this moment where he, almost, like, extrasensory perception, he, like, sees Sam standing there while Boris is turning him. And has this realization of, like, oh, fuck, Sam didn't stop that from happening when he could have. But it works. And Dean is no longer a vampire. We cut. It's the next day. And Sam again is back at it. He's like, what'd you see in the nest? And Dean's like, okay, so T is... They were talking about, like, a higher power, like their father. There's like some sort of link, like a psychic link with the alpha monster. If you'll recall, the whole point of this season is that, like, monsters are getting stronger and there are these alpha monsters who are, like, leading their constituents. And Dean's like, you know, this is a problem because, like, he's trying to build an army. He's, like, trying to get recruits. Like, this sucks. And the worst thing is they're not scared of us anymore because, like, we can kill them, but, like, they're not worried about being killed. Like, they're just trying to fulfill their mission, basically. And it's all fucked up. It's all bad. We cut again. Dean is on the phone and he's like, hey, Lisa, like, just call me back. Like, I just want to talk. Clearly, Lisa's not answering the phone for Dean. And Sam walks up and he's like, you still can't get through to Lisa? And he's like, yeah, no, she's not answering my calls. Sam, you know, at least I can count on you, right? And Sam's like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, of course. Clearly this is a lie. Like, this just doesn't seem right. It's the same way Sam's been acting this whole season. Like, it's just not right. But he's like, yeah, like, of course, Dean. And Dean kind of nods, but you can tell that he's like, something's not right with Sam. Something's not good. And then the episode ends.
I feel like every season of Supernatural is, well, something's not right with Sam.
That's very true. It's all just very, very different things that are not right with him.
Yeah.
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 Also, fun fact about this episode, apparently the club, the Black Rose Club, reappears in season 11.
What the fuck?
Also,
I have to say, okay, I have to shout out to the Supernatural fans in the audience who are Jewish Winchester's truthers, because Dean
is so true.
Dean says L'chaim before he takes the shot.
Before he drinks the cure.
Before he drinks the cure.
So true.
And also, to the Twilight fans in the audience, my partner pointed this out, is that when he's when he takes the cure and when he's, like, going through it, it's very much like the Bella turning moment in Breaking Dawn.
That is true.
So I also, in my notes, I wrote, this is such bullshit, R.I.P. Dean Lisa.
No, it is. Also, I'm sorry. If I'm Dean, the first thing I do when I leave Lisa a voicemail is say, hey, please answer me. I was turning into a vampire and was out of my mind. I want to apologize. Can we please talk? And the worst part is, in the next episode, like, when they do finally talk, he just handles it in the worst way possible.
God.
And we'll talk about that. I don't want to spoil it, but...
God.
Ugh.
Also,
okay.
Also, I have to say something, you know, about Twilight and them being Mormon vampires. You know how Mormons are really good recruiters? This is an episode about vampire recruiters. I think in this universe, Stephenie Meyer is a vampire.
Okay. Interesting.
And she's recruiting.
I don't really have anything to add. Like, I'm just like, okay. And
yeah,
you know what?
That's all I have to say.
We can sit with that. This episode just sucked so bad. And it's like, the pacing was weird.
Yeah.
The actual, like, conceit was weird.
Yeah.
The character decisions were weird. Like, the only interesting thing is, like, we get a little bit of, like, wait, what's going on with Sam? Like, that part I think was interesting, but, like, the rest of it was just, like, who gaff? It's stupid.
So, speaking of stupid episodes. speaking of stupid ass episodes, the next episode is real dumb. Okay, so welcome to season 6, episode 6. You can't handle the truth. This is also a really fucking stupid episode.
And hey guys, do you remember at the beginning when I said that, like, oh, a lot of writers who write bad episodes later start now? So this writing squad did also write one of my most hated episodes of Supernatural, Dog Dean Afternoon.
Holy shit.
And I realized, like, as I was watching this episode, I was like, something about this, like, feels familiar in a bad way. And I checked the wiki and was like, oh my fucking god. Oh god. I just, it drives me up the freaking wall.
Oh god. Okay, well,
and also apparently, the writers of this episode also created the series Ringer with Sarah Michelle Gellar and then left Supernatural to go write it, and then when that got canceled they came back for season 11.
At least back in the day TV writers were employed. At least. You know, so this episode starts, we're in Calumet City, Illinois. There's this waitress with a pixie cut. Her name is Jane. She's on the phone with her sister.
Jane. Justice for Jane.
No, literally. She's on the phone and with her sister. She's really, like, stressed, and she says, I just need the truth. And it kind of, like, zooms in on her mouth. And suddenly she looks harried, and she goes into the kitchen and she's talking to the chef, and he starts, like, telling her, he's saying really mean shit to her, and he's like, you're really pathetic, whatever, and he's like, oh, and I put something special into the clam chowder, you should stay away from it. He's like being a creep and being awful. And then she's like, she goes and she's like, what the hell? And then she passes by the host who she was talking to earlier, who then is like, yeah, the new waitress is hotter than you. And she's like, oh my God, like, what is going on? And then she serves this old woman who's like, yeah, one time I ran over a homeless man and then I just kept driving. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? And then she's another coworker who's like, yeah, you make me nauseous. You're so pathetic. And then she calls her sister back and she's walking around. And her sister kind of turns on her and is like, yeah, you're a freak. You're a walking disaster. And this is what doesn't make sense is she goes and pulls a gun out of a drawer, which I'm like, why is there a gun at this restaurant? I don't... Content...
My thought was, like, if this was, like, a convenience store or something where it's like, oh, there's a chance we might get mugged or, like, robbed, okay, I guess I understand why you would have a gun. But at, like, a restaurant that looks like, honestly, like, it's giving, like, Olive Garden.
Yeah.
I was like, why is
there an old-timey looking revolver?
No, like a little, like a Derringer.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Content warning for suicide, because it is a thing that is discussed a lot in this episode. So this woman shoots herself with this gun in the middle of the fucking Olive Garden. And then it's, like, supernatural. And then we cut to Dean is, like, at a park and he's on the phone with Bobby. And he's like, I know what I saw, Bobby. That's not my brother. He watched me get turned. And Bobby's like, well, did you talk to Cass? And he's like, Cass isn't answering. Screw him. And Bobby's like, okay, like, calm down. Just don't shoot him yet. We need facts. And Bobby says, you know, we need facts, you know, if we're gonna put him down.
Just like, it's like he's like an elderly dog.
Yeah, it's kind of
old yeller ass.
It's kind of crazy. I'm gonna say right now, I think this is really out of character for Dean, because Dean isn't taking the thing of, like, there's something wrong with my brother. He's like, I don't trust this being. And not just like, oh, there's something wrong with my brother and I have to save him. I'm like, I
mean, to be fair, I kind of understand, because Sam has never acted like that. Like, it is like, okay, that's not Sam. Like, I get where he would come from with that.
I know, I think he would be weirded out. I just think the tenor of it, of there's this being that I need to go fucking kill instead of there's something wrong with my brother, is not it's not what he would do. But okay,
I don't know. I kind of get the logic of it, of being like, instead, because I feel like he's like tried to talk to Sam to be like, are you okay? Like, clearly something's wrong with you. And now he's to the point where he's like, okay, that's not just something wrong with Sam. Like, that is not him.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I kind of understand where he's coming from. Whatever.
Yeah. So
this is not this episode's biggest sin.
There are many. So he says, I don't want to be in the same car, let alone work the same case. And Bobby's like, I don't give a fuck. Get in the car. He's your case. And then Sam walks up and is like, hey, everything good? And Dean's like, yeah. So then they cut to Sam and Dean go to the house of the sister who was on the phone with the woman who killed herself. And they're pretending to be feds, and she does the normal, like, oh, well, the police already came, and this is a suicide, like, why are the feds involved? And Sam says, he makes an Obama administration joke, because this is 2010.
He's like, this is a much more compassionate administration.
And I'm like, Sam doesn't know about the drone strikes. Unfortunately. He doesn't know about the increased deportations. Anyways, yeah. And so Sam's like, so what did you say to her? And she's like, well, I did what any sister would do. I tried to cheer her up. I told her to hang in there. And then Sam kind of flips, because Sam is normally the caring one in these kinds of conversations. And Sam's like, do you know what a tell is? I know you're lying. Tell us what you did to your sister. And Dean's looking at him like, what the fuck? And suddenly she's like, yeah, you're right. I was lying. I wanted to tell her, I love you. I'm here for you. But what came out was, you're a burden, just kill yourself. Like, who says that? I just couldn't stop. And they're like, there's something wrong here. And they're like, okay, there's no hex bags, there's no sulfur, like, what's going on? So then we cut to, there's a dentist and a hygienist. They're working on this guy's teeth. And the guy is like joking about like, oh, I need a Valium. And something important to note is that there's a TV on in the background with a woman who from afar looks like Rachel Maddow, but it doesn't when you
what the hell are you? I do not think she looked like Rachel Maddow.
As I said, from afar, she doesn't actually look like Rachel Maddow when you zoom in and you see this thing.
That's crazy, because I would not have said that in a million years.
This is a Mouska tool we'll use for later. She doesn't actually, it's just like kind of blurred in this scene because it's not important, but it will be important later. It's a stupid episode. So they're talking, like the dentist is trying to get the guy to be a little more relaxed, and clearly they know each other. And the dentist is like, oh, like, you and Donna, his wife, you should come over for supper. And the guy in the chair is like, well, I'm not really into Donna anymore. She's old. And then he just starts talking, and he admits to being attracted to the dentist's daughter, Melissa, and molesting her at a slumber party.
Well, he doesn't do that. He's like, oh, I'm not attracted to my wife anymore because she's old. You know who I am? Like, but you know what? Sometimes, like, I don't want your daughter to, like, come over to my house because, like, the temptation is too much. And it's not that, like, I would be scared of holding back. It's that I would be scared about getting caught.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
It's fucking crazy. And so then the dentist does what any normal person would do, and he just takes the drill and just kills him with it. And good for him.
Period.
Yeah. He just straight up. And then the hygienist walks back in and is like, oh my God, what is happening? And we got to, Dean is on the phone with Bobby again. And he's like, I'm not finding anything. Dean is really stressed, whatever. And Dean's like, is Satan my co-pilot right now? Like, what's going on? And Bobby says, the worst case scenario is that maybe it's just Sam. Maybe he's just different now.
Well, because Bobby's like, yeah, worst case scenario is, and Dean's like, yeah, that Satan's my co-pilot. And he's like, well, that's the other worst case scenario, because the real worst case is that Sam is just like that.
Yeah. And then suddenly Dean's like, well, you get a day, Bobby, and then I'm handling this. And you're like, so you're just gonna kill him? Like,
that was crazy.
What?
Like, what?
Again, this doesn't feel like Dean, but okay. He would want to fix him. Then we see Dean. He tries to call Lisa again, but he hangs up. He doesn't even get to. And then Sam comes in. It's like, hey, there's another one. There was another weird death. And Dean makes a joke about how it's the non-sexy kind of drilling. Okay. So at this point, they're like, okay, let's go. And then Dean's like, actually, I'm going to stay behind and do some research and let Sam go ahead. And Sam is suspicious. He's like, Dean never does that. Then there's this shot of an American flag outside a police station that, like, there's not needed. And we see Sam is talking to the hygienist. And he calls Dean, and he's like, okay, so bad news. We can't talk to the dentist because he just hung himself in his cell. And they're like, what the hell? So Sam goes to the morgue, and Dean's like, okay, I'll check the dentist office, the crime scene. And as he was doing that, we see him close the laptop, and he was researching. He's on the wiki for doppelgangers.
Funny as fuck, low-key. Like,
it's so... Anyways, so Dean is looking around at the crime scene. And there's blood everywhere. There's you know, police tape. He goes into the dentist's office, like his personal office. And there's a saxophone on the back wall. And he's like, huh. And then he looks at the desk. And there's a...
Okay, also... I have to say this as someone who, okay, I'm doxing myself a little bit. I've worked in music retail for like over 7 years. I don't anymore, but I was like work full-time music retail for like 7 years and on and off before then. It is insane to me that he would have like a saxophone in his office at the dentist office. Like, in his room, like, I just don't, in, like, the exam room, too, right?
No,
like,
it was his office. It was his room in the back.
That's...
My only, like, thing would be, like, you know, like, for me, for example, like, I, like, my first pair of point shoes that I had that I obviously only used a certain amount, like, I kept, and then I hung it in my home or whatever. And, like, there's some people who, like, they'll keep their first instrument or whatever they don't play anymore because the one that they do play is out or whatever. I don't know, but it's like he had it displayed in his office, and then he had a box of reeds.
The reeds were what was really throwing me.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you practicing? I do like the idea of this dentist practicing after hours, because there are people who do that where it's like, oh, I don't want to be practicing at home because it's loud and it'll annoy my family. So I do like the idea that he is like, once he finishes a hard day of dentistry, he's like, I gotta get a load off by playing the saxophone.
Yeah. So Dean sees that there's this receipt to this place called Harry's House of Horns.
Don't even get me started.
And so Dean goes to this music store, and this guy, who's clearly Harry himself, is like,
oh, because another thing that happened is that they had mentioned when they went to go visit the sister that the girl had played the tuba. So this is this is a woodwind themed. Well, it's not a woodwind because trombone is not a woodwind.
It's a brass and woodwind themed episode.
It is a yes, correct.
So this guy Harry is like, yeah, I heard that both of them died. It's really awful. And Dean is like, you know, is there anything that might have, you know, connected the two? And he's like, no. And then as Dean is leaving, Harry's like, well, what about my stolen horn? Because he thinks that Dean is an undercover cop. And he's like, yeah, the thing is like 1 in a billion. It's a museum piece. It's about 1,000 years old. The fuck does this guy in Illinois with a music store have a 1,000-year-old horn for?
That's what the fuck I'm saying. Because he's like, oh, it's dated to be over 1,000 years old. I'm like, brother, why is that not in a museum and in your fucking like family-owned small like brass instrument repair and retail store? Like, I just cannot fathom that happening. That is fucking crazy.
That's crazy. So and he's like, yeah. And Dean's like, oh, I didn't. Could you remind me? And he's like, yeah, it got swiped actually the same day that Jane died. And Dean's like, So Dean goes back to the motel. He's drinking again. He starts praying to Castiel. And
this is maybe the best scene in this episode.
Yeah, this is the only good scene.
Like, by far.
Yeah, he's on the computer. He's now on a wiki for Gabriel's Horn of Truth. So he thinks it's that. And suddenly, Cass is here. Yay!
Everyone clapped. Everyone jumped up.
Everybody clapped.
And this scene is, like, so homoerotic in a way that I was like,
there is a moment in it where I'm like, what the fuck?
No, literally. Even the Fujos were weirded out.
So Dean, if we remember, Dean has prayed to Cass, and so has Sam, multiple times, and Cass hasn't come. When he's like, what's wrong with Sam? And so Cass shows up, and he's pissed. The girls are fighting. And he's like, what are you doing here? And Cass is like, you asked me to be here, and I came. And they're fighting. And Cass is like, I didn't come because I didn't have anything about Sam. I don't know. And Lord. So at this moment, Dean is drinking. And for some goddamn reason, in the middle of them fighting, they're like a married couple. Cass reaches over and homoerotically pours him more of a drink. Doesn't pour himself a drink. Reaches over to be closer physically to Dean to pour him a drink. And they just keep going. What the hell
was all that about? What was that?
The chemistry
and they act like it's
crazy.
Okay, they act like it's normal. I remember, I think about this post, like, I'm not joking. I think about this post all the time. It was back when I was in the shits of the Supernatural fandom. And it was when we were all, like, not normal. We were all crazy. But they were like, I hope that Destiel becomes canon, and they reveal that it has been canon, but, like, it just was never on screen because they were keeping it a secret from Sam because they didn't want him to know. And just, like, they had all this evidence about being, like, here's how I think that we could make an argument that Destiel has been, like, retroactively canon this, like, since season, I think they said, like, since, like, season 6 or, like, since, like, Purgatory, and they just, like, never revealed it. And, like, wouldn't it be awesome if it went canon by one day they're like, okay, love you, bye. And Sam's like, wait, we'll go back. And it's like, oh, well, we just didn't say anything to you before because we didn't know how you'd take it. But so sometimes stuff like this happens, and I think about that post where I'm like, they've been together secretly the whole time.
No, because they act like a married couple. It's weird. Like, they're fighting, and then in the middle of this, Cass is like, oh, here you go, Pookie. And you're like, what the? This is not a thing Cass normally even does. It's so fucking weird.
No, I remember watching that, and I'm getting like, this episode sucks, but, like, I just remembered, like, when we talk about how it's like, this show sucks, but then there'll be, like, a Destiel crumb, and you're like, this is the best show ever.
They'll be like, come here, Fujo, come here. Here's your little treat. It's like me sneaking in. It's like me, like sneaking in a pill in the middle of some cream cheese for my cat. Like, that's what it's like.
No, it's like that, except for it's like if there was, like, a tiny bit of cream cheese inside of the pill and you were choosing to eat the nasty pill only for the chance that there might be some cream cheese in the middle.
Yeah, and, like, not every pill has cream cheese. It's like Russian roulette.
In fact, most of them don't have cream cheese.
But when they do, I'm like, I'm eating it up.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, this is a really good bit of cream cheese. Like,
yeah, it's
really, the homoerotic tension between them in this scene is,
oh, it's so good.
So, because here's the next thing, he homoerotically pours him alcohol as he's saying, and you know, Dean is like, you know, is Lucifer my co-pilot, whatever, and he's like, and Cass is like, well, if Lucifer escaped the cage, like, we'd feel it, we the angels. And then he kind of turns around, and then Dean says another diabolical line. He says, what happened to you, Cass? You used to be human, or at least like one.
No, just flashbacks to you falling in love with humanity.
No.
Oh.
No. And then Cass kind of looks away. And unfortunately, this was giving that J-Vic moment a little bit.
Don't bring up fucking J-Vic right now.
Because everything at the end of the day starts with Destiel. Where Cass goes, I'm at war. Certain regrettable things are now required of me. And then he disappears. And you're like, what the fuck?
Also, the staging of this is crazy because Cass is, like, turned around and Dean is, like, looking at his back. And it's just, like,
yeah,
you get a close-up on Cass's face and you see Dean in the background and it's just so diabolical.
It's diabolical. And then suddenly, Cass reappears. And he goes, oh, by the way, it's not the Horn of Truth. And Dean's like, huh? What did you just do? And he's like, well, I looked everywhere. And he's like, how'd you look everywhere? What, already? And he's like, well, yes. I'm an angel. I can do that.
Another crazy thing of being like, oh, well, I'm an angel. I can do that. I'm like, I feel like that would have been extremely helpful in, like, every, like, this is another thing of supernatural lore. Like, took me out of the amazing Destiel scene to be like, you know, supernatural lore is really so inconsistent. It's basically just, like, whatever they think is useful for a character to have.
Deus ex Cassina.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's not anything.
Yeah.
But okay. Sure.
So, and then suddenly Cass disappears again. And because if you remember, the whole thing is that heaven is in chaos and a bunch of Heaven's weapons are on the loose, which is why Cash showed up and was like, hey, let me check. And then it wasn't. But also, he could have checked and then, like, you know, telepathically talked to Dean. He didn't have to show up and have the homoerotic conversation with him.
Yes, he did.
Well, yeah, he did. Because he needed to touch Pookie. But, like, anyways. So, and then Dean's like, well, nice seeing you anyway. Then Cass says to Dean, before he leaves, he says, I don't know what's wrong with him, but I do want to help. I'll make inquiries.
Yeah. Oh.
He's like, you know what? I've been derelict in my duties towards my husband. Don't worry.
It's like he's talking about he's like the absent father when something's wrong with the kid and is like not present. And Dean's like, I'm trying so hard. And he's like, okay.
Dean's a single mom who works 2 jobs.
You need to stop. Every episode you reference that damn song.
Oh, so you hate Reba?
Yes.
So anyways.
No, I don't hate Reba. Don't try to make me look anti-Reba.
And then Cass is gone. So then we cut to Sam. He's at the morgue. And the coroner kind of pulls the dead dentist out. He calls him Dr. Giggles.
Sam calls him that. Also, this shit is stupid. This scene
dumb.
Is stupid.
It's dumb. So Sam's like, hey, I want to see the other suicides. And the coroner's like, they're all gone. And Sam's like, what do you mean? Like, gone? And the scene ends. And yes, the bodies aren't there anymore. And then...
Because, you know, casually the bodies have been stolen. And, you know, that isn't, like 7 bodies have been stolen. Yeah. That isn't bigger news. It's not 7, but it is a couple. No, it is. It is a lot. Yeah. There's other ones that weren't on camera. Yeah.
So
I'm like, hey, you'd think that they would know that, or like, you know, the community would know that. Yeah. That would be something that would probably be making the news.
So then we cut to Dean, who is day drinking at a bar, and Sam calls him and he's like, hey, the bodies have been stolen. I think the only lead we have is that one of the bodies was there up to a week before the other ones. That has to be the patient 0. This person died supposedly in a car accident, but I don't know if that's true. So I'm going to go check it out. And Dean keeps day drinking. And he hangs up on Sam and he says to the bartender, and he says he's clearly drinking about the whole Sam thing. And she's like, how are you doing? Whatever. And he's like, you know, honestly, I just like the freaking truth. And it zooms in on his mouth. And then suddenly the bartender's like, sometimes I think I can't get pregnant because God knows my marriage is a sham. Also, I mean, I've been snorting Oxy all day. Wait, why did I say that?
Yeah. You're like, kind of, she's iconic. I love her.
Yeah.
I want a show about her.
Yeah. And then Dean's like, oh, shit. And then Dean gets up to go after paying her. And there's this woman, like, kind of this woman is wearing a low-cut dress in the middle of the day at a dive bar. And she's like, I'm sitting like this so you'll look at my breasts. And he's like, oh, anyway.
He's like, good luck with that. And she's like, I paid a lot of money for them.
And he's like, oh. And then, so then he calls Bobby.
Well, he goes to leave and then he turns around and does take a look at him. And I'm like, you know what? I appreciate that. He's like, you know what, girl? I got you.
Yeah. He's like, you know, make him worth it. So then he leaves and he calls Bobby and he's like, hey, Bobby, is there anything you're itching to tell me? I'm just testing a theory. Clearly to see if, like, does it work over the phone as well? And Bobby's like, no, I don't really have anything. You know, I am a huge Tori Spelling fan. And did you know that I get pedicures? And then he says this, like, weirdly racist thing about Vietnamese women giving pedicures.
Okay, this was, I don't know. It was racially charged, but I don't know if it was racist.
I don't know if there's something we can determine.
It was more just like, I was like, why did he need to bring up that she was Vietnamese?
Yeah.
But he was kind of like, dang, I love the way she handles my feet. She's so strong.
Yeah.
What?
It was crazy. And then he starts talking, and then he's like, well, Dean, you're my favorite. Even if Sam is the better hunter, you're my favorite. And Dean's like, uh-oh. And then
I'm like, that is crazy, because it's like, well, yes, but like, damn, that's so damn Bobby.
And then he says, how is it that half the time you clean a mess, you end up dirty? He's saying crazy shit. And then he says, did you know my first girlfriend turned out to be a... And then he cuts himself off. He's like, I gotta go. And Dean's like, I don't want to know. Please stop.
No, Dean cuts him off because he's like, did you know my first girlfriend turned out to be a... And then Dean says, you know what, Bobby? I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I'm going to be scarred for life. Let's just be done. I don't want to hear it.
So then Dean, of course, calls Sam. And he's like... and then he leaves him a message. And he's like, I gotta ask you some things. And we cut to that Sam is with the sister of the woman who died in the car accident. So it was a woman who died in the car accident. She starts crying. She's like, she was pretty normal, but there were some things that were wrong. Maybe she wanted to kill herself. And the woman's name was Corey. And she was really upset with stuff at work. And also her cat had just died. And she was really obsessed with finding out the truth of if her boyfriend cheated on her. So then Sam goes up to check the dead woman's room. And we cut back to Lisa talking to Dean on the phone. It seems like she has called Dean.
Dean's like, wow, this is literally like my hell.
And he does say this is like the worst day of his life. And
no, he's like, this is literally the worst time that you could call me right now. And she's like, okay, well, don't hang up because you're gonna listen. And he's like, fuck.
Yeah. So he calls and he's like, hey, like, can we just like talk like tomorrow, whatever? And she's like, no, like, I'm ready to talk about it now. And she's like, Ben won't even talk about it. And he's like, okay, but can we talk about this tomorrow? And she's like, no, you shoved my kid, Dean. How about we do this now? And he's like, it wasn't like that. And she's like, well, then how was it? And he goes, I can't really explain. And I'm like, tell her you were turning into a vampire.
It would have been so easy if he had said, I was turning into a vampire. I thought I was going to have to get put down. I wanted to come say goodbye to you and realized it was a bad idea while I was doing it. I am so sorry about what I did and I want to make it right. Or even if he'd said, we should cut this off because clearly I'm bringing too much shit home. But he could have just told her.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane to me because that's also like, if we're going to set up this thing of Dean being like, I don't want to bring my shit home to Lisa and Ben.
Yeah.
Totally fair, I think. But I think in this situation, he owes her an explanation. And she would probably, as we have talked about, Lisa's very well adjusted. She probably would have at least understood enough to be like, okay, I don't like hate you for real. But like there could have been real conversation here.
Yeah.
I still think low-key, like, you did shove my kid, so like, and come home when you thought you were gonna become a vampire, but like, at least there could have been conversation. Like, he just needed to be honest. It's like so crazy to me that he didn't just say, here's the tea, because like, she knows everything.
Yeah. It's
I can't
so
with
weird.
this.
No, because then she launches into this whole speech, obviously compelled by this truth curse thing, where she's like, you've got so much buried in there, you push it down, you honestly think you can drink a fifth and then be okay. And then she's like, you two, him and Sam, you have the most unhealthy, tangled up thing I've ever seen. As long as he's in your life, you're never gonna be happy, and me and Ben can't be in this with you. And you're like, oh shit, Dean's heart is breaking, it's bad.
And she's low-key like, I'm like, because she's like, I'm close with my sister too, but if she died, I wouldn't try to like bring her back from the dead. And I'm like, low-key, she's right though. Like,
yeah, it's like, yeah. So Dean, he looks stricken. So then we cut to Sam is looking through this dead woman's room, and he pulls out a jewelry box, and lo and behold, it has some witchy things in it. And there's an animal skull of the cat. It's Mittens. Uh-oh. And clearly some witchery was happening. And Dean then shows up at the house, apartment, I guess. And then he's like, hey, and Sam's like, hey, here's what happens. And he's like, cool, I don't care about that. I need to ask you a couple of questions. And Sam's like, okay.
This scene is fucking crazy too. I just like,
yeah.
The problem is that there are some really interesting emotional beats in this episode.
Yeah.
But like,
they're so
the rest of
yeah.
the rest of the story is just so dumb, and like this whole overarching plot is just like whatever.
Yeah. So then Dean is like, when that vamp attacked me, why did you just stand there? And Sam's like, I didn't. I froze. And Dean's like, you've been Terminator since you got back. What the fuck do you mean? And Sam's like, well, I don't know. It was shock. And then it was too late. And like, clearly, you know, he's lying. So there's something wrong here. And Sam's like, I feel terrible about it. I can't lie here. Like, do you really think I'd let something like that happen to you on purpose? And Dean looks confused and he accepts it. And he's like, I'm sorry, I guess I was wrong. It's just been a really, really bad day.
And Dean's like tearing up too. Like, he's like really like, I think that there's a certain desperation that he has here where he was like he just wanted answers so badly. And the fact that he thinks right now because Sam, as we know, and like as we are watching, we are under the impression like he cannot lie to Dean.
Yeah.
And Dean's under that impression too. So like the fact that there is no answer other than, damn, I was just having a moment.
Yeah.
Like, I know that has set him back of being like, fuck, what if Sam is just like this?
Yeah. And then Sam is like, I'll always have your back. I always have. And then Dean still looks a little sus. And then Dean, like, tries to change the subject, and he's like, oh, so was this the chick's pet? And they're back at the motel. And basically what they find out after some research is that this woman was using a summoning spell to summon the Roman goddess Veritas. Yes,
right.
Everyone.
Okay.
This is an episode where we talk about pagan gods eating people.
It's like literally, because the whole thing is that they're like, oh yeah, well, she's hungry, so she eats people. I'm like, why does she have to eat people? Also, I think it's also crazy to me too, is that like, we go back and forth on if the Roman or the Greek pantheons are canon, and it is so funny to me.
God, they make a Soylent Green joke here, whatever, but basically the lore that they say in the show is that, like, people gave their offerings to her, and then she would eat. It doesn't even make any sense, but people get enough of the truth and they kill themselves, and that's the tribute to her, I guess.
And then she's like, I'm gonna eat them.
Yeah. And
which is crazy to me too, because to my understanding in this episode, and this is kind of circling back, people are killing themselves, their bodies go to the morgue, she comes and steals them from the morgue. It's not like she stole all of them and there was this thing. It's like there's a slow drip of bodies being stolen from the morgue, and they're not doing like anything about this.
It doesn't make any sense. And then basically the way they explain it is that they're like, so Dean's like, oh, so she's an attention whore. And Sam's like, oh, what's the 21st century version of speaking truth to the masses? And then it cuts to a poster for outside a TV station for the woman who was on the TV earlier. And she was on the TV in a couple different places. Dean calls her Farm League Diane Sawyer. She's supposed to be this, like, 24-hour news kind of local pundit.
I thought it was supposed to be, like, it's under the impression that she's almost like the consumer, like consumer ground reporter who's, like, I almost made, like, an extremely niche reference to DC local news. Because I was like, she's kind of like the Susan Hogan of, like, but anyway, no, but she's to my understanding, she's like here's what's really going on with your food, or here's what's really going on with this purchase that you can make.
Which, like, I don't know if that's really an attention whore kind of thing. See, this episode might have worked better if she was an influencer, but, like, okay.
But even so, that wasn't really a thing the way it is now.
Yeah.
But even so, I thought that making her, like, a local news thing, and then also having it be, like, she's attention whore and a truth seeker, I was like,
what are we doing?
It felt like such a strange, like I understand where they were coming from, but I was like, all of these things that you've put together just feel so...
They don't go.
I don't know. The vibes were so weird that I'm like, even I think if this does kind of make sense, I was just so like, no, fuck this episode.
Yeah. So they're at this TV station. Her show is called Frank Talk with Ashley Frank. And they go in and they get, like, the raw footage. And then they bring it back to the motel. They watch it all night. Dean is eating, and Sam is watching.
Dean is eating. Dean eats an entire pizza over the course of this sequence.
Yeah, and Sam is, like, locked the fuck in, and they don't really notice anything. And then suddenly they do mention at some point that this goddess's weakness is dogs.
Well, that's because they were like, okay, she summoned her by using the cat skull, because cats are, like, her thing.
Yeah. So she doesn't like dogs. So then they find footage of her reporting in front of a house where a dog is barking at her, and then they see, like, the glare of her eyes looking funky in the camera, and they're like, okay, it's her. Let's go get her. And you're like, okay. I guess.
How they get to this conclusion and then how they find this is just like, this whole shit is so stupid.
It's
and
so
I know I'm
stupid.
like, how am I gonna sit here and complain about a network TV show? Like, I know that I'm being nitpicky, but that shit just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just so stupid.
It's, I don't know. I'm trying to see, I was looking on Wikipedia about if there's anything about the goddess herself, because she's also just like a personification of truth kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't mind. I don't even mind supernatural, like, making up lore about a goddess or about like a character, like a character in this way. Like, I think that that's always been a thing. Like, there's always iterations of like, of historical and like mythological creatures. Like, every fictional thing that deals with them is going to have its own version and is going to add or take away what makes it interesting to this particular story. I think what sets this apart from an episode that's truly like racist, like Hammer of the Gods, is that it's like, okay, nobody is really like, yes, there are people who do, you know, worship this goddess, and there are people who do engage with this sort of paganism, but it isn't like, oh, this is practiced by a certain ethnic group at this time.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's
just stupid instead of being disrespectful. Yeah.
It's just stupid.
Yeah. So then we cut to her. She's dressed in like, I don't know. It looks like she walked out of Casablanca. Like she drives away from the station in this like sports car with her like head covered like she's an old-time movie star, and then she gets out of the car in this shawl in front of this modern, very expensive looking house where you can see through all of her windows. Yeah.
And I'm like, she's doing the local news and she has like this crazy mansion that's like modernist, like, I mean, square, looks like the fucking Cullen house.
Yeah. So then Dean is like, I'm sure inside it's chock full of creep, like, even though it looks normal. And it's just weird because it's like, rich people don't like you to see inside their house, but like, sure. And then so Sam's like, all right, let's go in there, and they get out their knives, and apparently what kills her is stabbing her with dog's blood. And then Dean's like, where did you get dog's blood? And Sam's like, you don't want to know. So Sam's killing dogs now, I guess. And Sam's like, where's all the creep when they go to break in? Her house is filled with all these like modern fireplaces and like fountains that are walls and shit like that. She has cats everywhere, obviously. She has statues of cats. There's a Byzantine mosaic with cats with a picture of herself in her house, which is kind of giving. And I don't know how they get in, because like, why doesn't she have like an alarm system?
Okay, I have to ask also at this point, another plot inconsistency.
Yeah.
So they're saying this girl summoned her.
Yeah.
But she has this house and clearly has been on the news for a while. How did, like, it doesn't, how long has she been here? Because it's supposed to have not been that long, but
it doesn't make any sense.
It's
doesn't
stupid.
make any sense.
It's so stupid.
So then they find her torture room of bodies. There's cats that are sitting and eating human meat. She finds them, she kicks them, and she's like, oh, you came for dinner, great. She's now dressed in like the prom dress version of the CW version of a toga, I guess, with some jingly jewelry. It's very weird. So okay. And they wake up, they're tied to the handlebars of this shower-like contraption sauna, and she's like, oh, well, sit tight, like, you're up next. And Sam starts cutting the wire with his knife, and she goes and cuts out the dentist's tongue, which is funny, because the dentist was the one who was, like, he killed himself. Like, he wasn't the initial victim, but, like, okay. And she's cutting out this dentist's tongue, and then she just starts eating it off the fork, and she's like, oh, it's the tastiest part, because that's where the lies roll off.
Wait. No, I know what it is. He is one of the victims of that, because he killed himself after, remember?
Well, yes, but I mean, yes, technically he is, but it's just like, that was kind of a third thing. Like, he wasn't one of the people who was compelled. But yeah,
he was. No, he was, because he was getting the truth being told to him by the guy.
Oh,
who was in his chair.
Right. You're right. So, and she's like, oh, well, you know what happens when you base your life on lies. And then she, like, kneels down to the two of them. She's like, how about we play a little truth or truth? And then she's like, so, Dean, what do you really feel about your brother?
Okay, you know what I'm realizing? This premise is extremely fan fiction. Like,
yes.
Not that fan fiction isn't good. I've read supernatural fan fictions that are better than the show ever dreamed of being. But, like, this feels so, like, Tumblr snippet fan fiction.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to be disrespectful.
It's a truth serum, AU.
But,
I've seen many of them.
It's just like, oh my god, okay.
So Dean is like, okay, well, I feel better about him now as of yesterday. But yesterday I did want to kill him in his sleep. And I thought he was a monster, but now I think he's just acting like me, which is crazy. And he says it's the gig.
Also, like, not how Dean acts, but okay.
Yeah, but I think it is how he thinks he acts, even though it isn't.
That's fair.
So, and he says, you know, it's the gig. You're covered in blood until you're covered in your own blood. Half the time you're about to die, like right now. But what I'm good at is slicing throats. I ain't a father. I'm a killer, and there's no changing that. I just have to say, this is where I'm going to have, like, a weirdly deep point about this show. About why the ending of this show pisses me the fuck off so fucking bad. Is that thesis, which is clearly wrong, but what Dean thinks about himself, is supposed to be proven wrong by the show over and over. And it does prove it wrong. But then there are certain episodes, like the last episode, that try to go back on that. And the show is, like, fighting itself of what it's trying to say all the time. And it's fighting between this idea, this very queer idea of you can make your own destiny, you can make your own identity, you can make your own path. And you don't have to be the thing that, you don't have to be this violent version of masculinity. You don't have to be what God set out for you. You don't have to whatever. And then the show kind of slapping you in the face with, no, that's actually what it is, and that's the truth. Go fuck yourself. The upsetting part.
It's very much what we talked about in the Hammer of the Gods episode.
Yeah.
Where we covered it, where it's like what the show is trying to say is completely different from what it is actually saying textually.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it keeps saying, oh, Dean isn't this, you know, it's trying to tell you, like, oh, Dean is just down on himself. He doesn't think he's this like, he thinks he's this monster and he's not. But then it's like, he does stuff and you're like, no, like, what he's doing is playing into this conception.
Yeah.
Which, even though I think it is, like, fair to say, like, with the vampire thing, it's like he was turning into a monster against his will. Like, it was not intrinsically that he is bad, that he is not good. It's that he is just making this poor decision. But it keeps doing that where it's like, oh, Dean deserves to break out of this fate that he thinks is sealed for him. And, like, yes, team free will, all that, only for him to die to that in the end.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, I think what's sad about it is that it's, like, there are a lot of men who watch this show who, not to say that TV has to teach you messages or whatever, but it's very much, like, there are a lot of men who, like, take this as, you know, this is a commentary on American masculinity, and if the answer to that is, well, you're always, you know, doomed to die bloody and you might as well be nihilistic about it, it's like, I'm about to make a comparison that is so fucking heinous, but to me it's very similar to my issues with Attack on Titan and the ending of Attack on Titan, where I'm like, I understand the political point that it's making, but the political point that it's making of, like, we're stuck in these cycles and we can never get out of them, and what was the point of it all? And, you know, maybe this person was good in the end, even though he killed a bunch of people, is, obviously, I'm not comparing the two characters, but, like, it's a very similar thing of, like, actually that is a pretty shitty and wrong message. It's definitely a specific viewpoint, but it's wrong.
That's the thing with this show, but the thing I think about this show that sets it apart is that it does have, like, the right message at its core. It just doesn't show it.
And then it switches all the time.
Yeah, and it's like, because it doesn't know necessarily what it's trying to be, its message gets so murky that it's like, are you trying to be a thing that like, in the end, because Dean succumbs to the fate that he's trying to fight, it makes it look like every point you make saying, oh, you can subvert fate, and yes, you should be trying to fight back against, like, predetermined notions about you. It's like, well, those were right in the end.
Yeah. And also in the last episode, they do try to make a point of him, like, in the end, he's accepting his fate, and you're like, that's not, and I will say,
that's not the point.
I
like,
will
that's
say,
not
to get deep about it, but because this show started in 2005 and then ended in the very specific year of 2020, the show's evolution over time of the American consciousness, or of what it means to, like, the millennial identity over time, like the fighting back and forth between what is the message that it's trying to say and what outlook it's trying to have, it feels very much like the ups and downs of that. And then it ending in 2020 with, well, guess I'll just accept this shit, is, I think that's what made it uniquely dark for a lot of people when it ended, to be like, girl, what the fuck? Anyways, I don't know, we always end up talking about the stupid Juggalo clowns.
Damn, the stupid Juggalo clowns and the insanely racist Hammer of the Gods, like, those, I feel, are kind of, like, foundational episodes of Supernatural.
Yeah, so anyways, all that's to say is, Dean believes this shit about himself, and apparently so do the showrunners. So then the goddess Veritas says, oh, so Sam walking back into your life must have been a relief. And she's like, oh, the Mallory to your Mickey. And then Sam...
also, that's a fucking crazy reference to make. Yeah. Which one of them is Juliette Lewis, quickly? Who's Juliette Lewis and who's Woody Harrelson between them?
Unfortunately, I think I think it's Sam.
That's crazy. That's insane. But, like, I guess you're kind of right. Like, oh my god.
So
what the hell?
It's so Sam, supposedly telling the truth here, says, he's like, well, what we do is hard, but we watch out for each other, and that's what's important, and that's the truth. And she kind of looks at him and realizes, like, something's wrong. And she's like, no, that's not the truth. You're lying. How are you doing that? And then she turns to Dean, and she's like, what is he? And Dean's like, I don't know. And then Sam...
No, because what's even worse is that Dean clearly starts, like, because he answers, he's like, oh, I don't know. Like, he started to crash out because he's like, oh, fuck, like...
Oh, I was right.
I thought Sam couldn't lie to me, and that's why I was, like, accepting. But if he can lie to her, he was lying to me, and now I don't know what to believe.
Yeah. I feel like this episode should really be called Gaslight, Gatekeep, Samboss. Because your boy is... That's what he's doing. So, Sam breaks out, and she asks, she's like, are you human? They start fighting. Dean is trying to break out. She's choking out Sam, and then Dean grabs the knife with the dog's blood and stabs her. And her face turns into this, like, cat, snake kind of face, and then Sam stabs her, and she falls over dead. And then Sam turns around, and Dean has the knife raised at him, and he looks suspicious. And Sam's like, Dean, it's me. And Dean's like, you are not my brother. What are you? And Sam's like, God's honest. I'm like, well, that's funny for you to say. And this is where Sam kind of breaks down. He's like, there's something wrong with me. Like, really wrong. And I've known it for a while. And Dean is like, why the fuck did you let me get turned? I could have killed Ben. And Sam says, and that should have stopped me cold, but I just don't feel it, and I don't know why. And he's like, I'm a better hunter than I've ever been because nothing scares me anymore. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I did say, well, that's called depression. But
yeah. Oh, a deep sense of emptiness. We all been there.
Yeah. And then Sam is like, I need help. Dean looks a little doubtful, and he puts the knife down. And then he turns around and starts punching Sam in the face a bunch of times and punches him out cold. And then the episode ends.
I think that was him trying to knock him out so he could take him somewhere. But, like,
I'm sorry. That's out of character, especially when there have been multiple times in the show where Sam has been like, there's something wrong with me, I need help, and then Dean's like,
to be fair, they did duke it out though before.
Yeah, but
with the Ruby stuff.
Yeah, like, but they were fighting sibling style. He wasn't beating the shit out of him with Sam not fighting back.
Yeah, that was a little crazy. This episode just, like, it's one of those things where, like, any one thing that happens in this episode, I could kind of be like, okay, if it was this one thing. And, like, I did find the emotional beats of, like, Dean being so desperate to figure out what's wrong with Sam, only to have this fear that, like, that's just how Sam is, only to realize, like, oh, no, it's not. Like, I think that's really interesting, but the backdrop of this episode's just so stupid.
It's
and, like,
so dumb.
The writing is just not very good, and the pacing is weird. Like, it's just not that good. And it's not even, like, funny bad. It's just like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's, like, if you're gonna have a procedural drama, like, yes, the emotional parts are important, and, like, the overarching story is vital, which is also not very good. But, like, if your procedural aspects of your procedural are not good, like, that is also not, it does not portend well.
It just, and it ends so, I don't know.
Abruptly?
Yeah.
It's, no, I realized as, like, the last scene was happening, I looked down at, like, the progress bar of how much was left of the episode, and I was like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, it's just... Anyway, what else is there to say except for, we warned you that Supernatural's a bad show. We fucking warned you guys.
And now it's, like, actually it's like, you know, we clowned on season 5 for being bad, but now it's like, oh, it's, like, actually starting to be bad, and not in a, like, oh, haha, this is so bad, in a, like, oh man, this just sucks.
Brother, ugh.
I just also realized another one of my least favorite episodes that everyone loves is coming up too, and I'm like, God, this season's full. I won't reveal that. That'll be revealed to the audience in due time. It's making me sad because, like, I was having fun watching these episodes before, and now I'm like, wait, I actually don't know if this is fun anymore. I'm worried the vibe that this show is gonna take going forward is gonna be so dark.
Well, you know what? It's gonna be a good vibe because I'm hanging out with you, my bestie.
Aw, and I'm hanging out with you. We're like the Statler and Waldorf of the Supernatural fandom, and we need to keep that up.
Cause listen, the episodes might be bad, but we're funny as shit. So
and we love each other. And we're twin flames.
Exactly.
Jot that down.
And
who's writing Mystery Spotcast fanfiction?
Please
Come on,
don't.
guys. You need to step it up.
No, because the other thing is that our love for each other is directly inverse to our love of Supernatural. So the more we hate Supernatural, the more we love each other.
I gotta get us out of here. If you enjoyed this show, please follow us. Social media. We're on Blue Sky, Tumblr, Instagram, TikTok. You can ask us questions in our Tumblr Ask Box. You can email us. We're themysteryspotcast@gmail.com. Feel free to rate and review Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. We really appreciate it. You can comment on our YouTube channel. You can tell a friend. All things we enjoy. We do have an official playlist that I am slacking on updating, but please keep submitting. I swear I will get around to putting everything in there. Please be there for your community in this very weird and scary time. We will have some resources linked in the description, so check those out. And without further ado, we will see you 2 Tuesdays from now for more slaying people, queer baiting things, the supernatural business.